Okay, everyone, I'm so excited today to share with you. I'm helping my friend out who is looking for ideas for gluten-free, dairy-free, and egg-free. So I thought I would share this video with everyone because I've got some tips and tricks I've learned throughout the years in dealing with our own allergy challenges in our home. And then with friends and customers that have struggled as well. And these products are amazing when you're cooking and baking with allergies, you guys. Okay, so they're non-porous, so nothing is going to stay on the product, nothing is going to cross-contaminate to the product. So you don't have to worry about, even if you have somebody in your family with a severe allergy and they can't have cross-contamination, you can cook safely on FlexiPan and know that if you wash it, which you do wash it with soap and hot water, that it's going to come clean and nothing is absorbing into that product and nothing from the product is absorbing into the food. So totally safe. It's an inert product. So very safe for food allergies. The other thing is because of its flexibility, it really works well for allergy substitutes. So what I'm going to share with you today, some of my favorite allergy substitutes when you're cooking with dairy-free or gluten-free, egg-free, and then I happen to do nut-free as well because of my son. So I'm going to share a lot. And if you have questions later, please reach out to me. I'd love to help you personally. I'm super passionate about helping people with food allergies. So for those of you who don't know me, I got into this business because I went to a cooking class 16 years ago, and it was 3 months after my son had been diagnosed with a ton of food allergies. And I had to get rid of all of my baking stones and bakeware, wooden spoons, different things that have been cross-contaminated with nuts because he's severely allergic to nuts. So when the allergist told me I had to get rid of all that stuff, I did not know what I was going to do. And I really panicked because I love to cook, I love to bake, and I knew that I could tackle the challenge of cooking for him with his food allergies, but I needed the right product to do it. And so when I found these products, I immediately knew I needed to completely revamp my kitchen and put all of these bomb cooked items in my kitchen. And so here I am 16 years later. This is the only product I use to cook and bake on, and I love it. And I'm going to share all the tips I've learned along the way too. So first up is I find that the gluten-free is actually more challenging, and it was more challenging 16 years ago than it is today because there's so many gluten-free items on the market. Gluten-free is not an allergy that we struggle with in our home, but I have so many friends I love dearly that do struggle, so I've been challenged to help them. I have done a lot with dairy-free and egg-free because those are two big allergies that we used to have in our family. So I did some gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free waffles and nut-free waffles, and I'm really excited. I want to show you the end result, and then I'm going to walk through, there's a couple different recipes you can use for this, and I'm going to show you a from scratch recipe. So this is our waffle tray. It's flexible. It sits on the perforated baking sheet. So by itself, you're not going to put that in and out of the oven. So you definitely need a perforated baking sheet for it to sit on to give it the stability, okay? So these are, I made 2 plain and 2 with chocolate chips, which is kind of fun. But you can see how beautifully they pop right out. And again, gluten-free, you guys, and they do not stick. The best thing I love about our waffles and the size of them is they fit in any toaster. And so you can make a bunch of these ahead of time, and then in the morning, heat them up in the toaster, which is awesome, okay? So you can see it's kind of fun to make some. You can add fruit, you can add chocolate chips, whatever maybe, it can be fun. So I'm gonna show you, I've got a recipe that I use with gluten-full and with gluten-free so that you can see the process of putting that together, okay? So first I forgot, I got everything except for my mixing bowl. So let me grab a mixing bowl. Okay. So first up is, you guys are kind of like, here's a recipe, and the first ingredient is flour, but we're going to use gluten-free flour. And there's so many different gluten-free flours on the market. Here where we live, we have a ton of Bob's Red Mill. The 1-for-1 flour is what I like, that already has the xanthan gum in it. It's super easy for measuring. It's fantastic. Now there are some recipes, trust the author of the recipe. If the recipe says use a specific type of flour, do that. I have a really amazing gluten-free artisan bread. Now that does have eggs in it, and I have not successfully made that without eggs yet. But for those of you who can have eggs, it's a great recipe, but you need to use the Pillsbury gluten-free flour. So it really does matter the type and the brand, okay? So this is the one, like chocolate chip cookies, baking, the banana bread that I'm gonna show you in a bit, I use this flour. just so that you know. And I don't work for these companies. I'm just sharing you what works. So now egg replacer. There's lots of great substitutes for egg replacer. One of the big ones, if I use this energy egg replacer all the time. It's a potato starch. You can get it at any of our local grocery stores. So I'm sure you can find it in your area. And I'm going to show you some tips on how to use it. Now, I will tell you, this works best when you're doing a from scratch recipe. Even though we don't have an egg allergy in our family, I still use this for my chocolate chip cookies because people always ask me, how do you get your chocolate chip cookies so perfect? This is my secret. I started using this when my kids were allergic to eggs, and I keep using it because it actually makes the best chocolate chip cookies. So I'll show you how to use this in a bit. But if you're doing a mix, so the waffles I actually made back there were from this mix. It's an awesome baking mix, all-purpose, gluten-free. On the back, there's recipes, and there's a waffle recipe on the back. So it calls for 1 cup of the gluten-free all-purpose baking mix, and then it calls for baking powder. Obviously, you want to make sure you get the gluten-free one. It calls for a tablespoon of sugar. It calls for 1 large egg. So for this, I used applesauce. So applesauce, 1/4 cup applesauce replaces 1 egg. These waffles, you guys, are super delicious. You would not even know by looking at them that there is not an egg in there, but I use applesauce instead, okay? So I do this successfully, whether I'm doing like a gluten-free, a cornbread mix, a cake mix, anything. You can use applesauce instead of egg. You can also use pumpkin. It's always that 1/4 cup equals 1 egg. So just a little tip there on that. And then it calls for milk. There's lots of great milk substitutes. In our family, we use coconut milk because we like the taste of it. There's no nuts in it, but there's lots of nut milks if you can do nut milks. And now, back in the day when I first was dealing with the dairy-free, there weren't so many dairy-free options. Now you've got oat milk, rice milk, soy milk, you name it. So there's lots of choices. So anytime a recipe says 1 cup of milk, you can use any kind of milk you want, just so you know. And then cinnamon. So there's a lot of great mixes out there like this. That you can also do this waffles. You can make them sweet or savory. You can do pancakes out of them, you name it. So we're gonna do this from scratch. So we're gonna start with 1 cup of milk. And so like I said, we're using the coconut milk. You can use any kind of milk. The next thing I'm gonna do is 1 egg. And I'm gonna show you how I do that. So we're gonna do, let me grab, this is that energy egg replacer. So now on the box, it'll tell you that you're gonna do, I'm gonna find it, I can read it. Here we go. 1.5 teaspoons of the energy egg replacer to 2 tablespoons warm water. So 2 things I'm gonna tell you. 1 is it's really important that the water is warm. Don't do it with cold water. 2 is I always measure this with heaping teaspoons. So in this case, I'm just doing 1 egg. So I'm doing 1.5. So I'm gonna go 1, and I'll do a heaping teaspoon of this. And then I will do 1/2. So I've got 1.5. And then what I'm gonna do is I love our mini whisk for this job, you guys. So I've got my warm water, I've already measured in here, 2 tablespoons. And then I'm gonna whisk that up to get it kind of white and foamy, okay? And so it is important, don't think that you can just throw this into the recipe and whisk it in there. You wanna whisk it by itself. And this mini whisk, there is no better. This actually, I used to do this with a fork before we had this mini whisk, and it would take forever with a fork. But with this mini whisk, you can see it whisks up really well and almost gets a little bit foamy. So I'm gonna show you guys this so you can see what it does. And this is what I'll do. So if I'm doing my chocolate chip cookies, it calls for 2 eggs, and I'll do 3 heaping teaspoons to 4 tablespoons of hot water. You whisk it so it's all combined and a little bit foamy, so you can kind of see that. Okay, so then I'm going to put all of that in with my milk, and you want every last drop. So you're going to take our either heat resistant spatula, I've got our blender spatula right here. I'm going to scrape that bowl out and get all of that in there perfectly. Okay, so then the next thing that I'm going to do is it calls for melted butter. Okay, this is really exciting. This is our all-time favorite dairy-free butter. It's called Earth Balance, and it comes there. You can get a soy-free version. We did have to deal with soy allergy at one point, but I will tell you, this one is the best tasting if you can do soy. And so it's the light yellow, not the dark yellow, not the red, but the light yellow. It's called Earth Balance. You can find this just in there. So we're gonna do, this recipe calls, I'm cutting the recipe in half. On my website, the recipe is good. We'll make 2 trays of waffles. So this is gonna make 1 tray. So we're gonna do 2 tablespoons and, oh, right in front of me, I'm looking for my mini round mold. This guy is perfect for melting butter. I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna kind of eyeball it because the butter will be easier to measure once it's melted for sure. But I'm gonna melt it in the microwave like this super quickly and easily. So I'm just gonna do 2 and a little bit. This, honestly, I use this butter to make chocolate cookies. People don't even know that they're egg-free, dairy-free. It's absolutely nuts. And so I'm so excited to be able to share that with you guys today. So this is my before, and I'm gonna put this in the microwave real quick, so hang tight. Okay, let me get a towel. Okay, so it's gonna melt pretty quickly, and we're gonna add that melted butter. It goes at the end of the recipe, but I just wanted to get that going while I got continued on this. So then the next thing is 1 teaspoon of vanilla, pure vanilla extract, and the back of your cap is usually about 1 teaspoon. You can't go wrong on that. So I'm gonna grab that. You grab this butter before it blows up. Okay, so this is really cool. So the butter you can see is steaming, right? But look, I can still hold this. So I love that this does not get hot in the microwave, but it melts my butter perfectly. So I don't want to spill it, but you can kind of see how that butter is melting. Okay, so carrying on with my recipe. So I've got the egg replacer, the milk, the vanilla. I'm doing all of the liquid except the butter comes in last. So I'm just doing all of that. And then I'm looking at my recipe, make sure I don't mess this up. Vanilla, eggs. Okay, so next up is gonna be our gluten-free flour. Okay, so you may see this mat that I'm working on here, you guys. It's our roll pack for rolling doughs. I do want to share with you how I do some really yummy gluten-free, dairy-free chicken pot pies. I've got that recipe on my website too. And so I kind of have this out here to remind you, even though I'm not showing you that recipe today, I want to tell you some tips about it. But this roll pack also makes a really great surface for when you are cooking, baking. You just want a clean surface, especially if you've got an allergy kiddo and you're worried about cross-contamination or something. This roll pack is perfect for that. When my oldest son, he was 2.5 when he was diagnosed with his food allergy. And so we would take a roll pot with us everywhere we went because he had a severe peanut allergy. And everywhere he went, it seemed like it would be peanuts. And he really couldn't touch it and then have to, so he would have his own safe mat to eat off of. And we could take it to a park, we could take it to a restaurant, to anywhere, but the roll pot is really good for that. So I just did 1.5 cups of all-purpose gluten-free flour. And then if you didn't notice what I was doing in the bag, I was scooping with the smaller scoop and putting it into my measuring cup. Because if you just scoop the big one in, you're not gonna get the right measurement. So it's really important to spoon it in. I do it with the other measuring cup to get the right measurement in there for sure. I already pre-measured 1/8 of a cup sugar. So it just does have a little bit of sugar in there. Give it some sweetness. And then we're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon salt. And then we need 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And I'm at the tail end of my baking powder here. So let's see if we can get that out of here, but I think we can. Yep. So 1 tablespoon baking powder. Okay, so then I'm going to go through, we're gonna whisk all this up, and then I'm gonna add the butter at the end, okay? So any questions, feel free to ask them. You wanna whisk it all up so that it's not lumpy. You want it to be smooth. And it's gonna go right into our waffle tray. And then again, you can, yes, if you want a savory waffle, you can leave that sugar out. But we're doing a standard breakfast waffle right now. You can make it special with fruit or chocolate chips, like I said. I forgot to pull my chocolate chips out. Chocolate chips are pretty easy to find, dairy-free, gluten-free, you guys. So I've got lots of suggestions if you need them. I even recently found a chocolate chip brand that is with stevia, and that was really cool. Okay, so almost forgot the butter. So here's my butter. Got that blender spatula. So I'm gonna show you what pouring in this melted butter. Look how easy that is with FlexiPan, you guys. And then you can squeeze it off. And I promise you, this dairy-free butter tastes like real butter. So you're getting that delicious flavor, but it's dairy-free, which is pretty cool. So now I'm just whisking, or actually folding this butter in. And then we're gonna put this in the pan. Now, the beauty of FlexiPan, you guys, is you don't spray, grease, oil the pan. So I don't have to grease this, flour it, oil it. It's ready to go by itself, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now I do like our heat resistant spatula with this waffle tray, because if I need to spread it, it's exactly the right size to go in and spread it. So I'm just gonna go ahead. Now, the trick with the waffle tray, guys, if you want them to be most like true waffles, is you don't want to overfill this, okay? So you want to fill them so that you're going to still see the little black knobs pushing up. So let me go ahead and get this going for you. The other thing I'm working on with my team is putting together our mega cooking class we do once a month. It's going to be next week, and we're doing cornbread in the waffle tray. And so I haven't seen the recipe that one of my teammates suggested yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be gluten-free as well. So that's kind of exciting, and just some versatility. You don't have to just do waffles in the waffle tray. So that's kind of fun. And so now you're gonna see, I'm gonna spread these out with that heat resistant spatula just because of the size of it. Now, this is a thicker batter. The batter that I did with the King Arthur Max and made that egg-free, that was thinner, and I didn't have to spread it. I more tapped it out. And so there are a lot of really good mixes out there, you guys, that you can use. So I don't feel like you have to do it from scratch, but I just really did this one so that you could see all the ways that I make those substitutions and see me use that egg replacer in action for all your recipes. So don't be afraid. Don't say no to a recipe because it says egg. You have substitutes for it. I mentioned already, but then you also flour, same thing. You can substitute gluten-free flour. There's a lot of really great recipes out there too that you can make with almond flours and stuff if you don't have a nut allergy. So definitely, if you're watching this video later or anyone on it now, you have any questions, let me know. I would love to help you guys, but don't be afraid. I guess that's the biggest thing with food allergies is there's so many great options that you can cook for your kiddos, your adults, whoever in your family has an allergy that they need to be aware of. We can help you with that for sure. And then the products are great because, like I mentioned, there's no cross-contamination that you have to worry about. It's a safe product. Those of you who don't know, our products have been around for over 50 years. It's what professional chefs use all over the world. It's really the reason that I started sharing them 16 years ago, because I felt like it's not a fad. It's not something that's going to go away overnight. It's something that's been around for a long time and the professionals are using it. So I knew it was a great product, a safe product to have in my home. It's also a product that comes from France. It's made in France. And so I know that they're a little bit stricter than we are here in the US about what's safe and available. So I definitely, with that confidence, could get these products for my son. Another benefit to allergies is that you can freeze really well in FlexiPan. And that is huge help. So you can make it ahead of time and freeze it. There's definitely a lot of great benefits to that as well. So you can see if the batter is not thick, I could just cap the bottom and it would settle out. Because this was thick, I spread it. But you can see how those the black little knobs are poking up, and that's the right consistency for the waffle. So now the cool thing about this waffle tray is I stick it in the oven and I can do something else. So this, I'm gonna put it at 400 degrees. I'll be right back, just a minute. Okay, so perfect. So I'm going to show you this broccoli. So the broccoli, I typically have a family of 5. I'm typically doing my broccoli in my large round mold. You can fit a ton in there. Today I'm going to show it to you in the small round mold. The octagonal bottom mat is our lid. It fits all of our round molds. It even fits the mini that I did the melted butter in. You can see that. It's a little big, but it still works, okay? So first up is prepping this broccoli. So now I washed it. I love our colander skid for washing things. You can rinse it under the water. And then I just cut the end off with our cake server knife. But then I want to show you, this is such a great knife. So the roll pat, as I mentioned, rolling pizza dough, cookie dough, pie dough. It's great for gluten-free dough. I'm going to give you some tips on that in a minute. But the cool thing about it is it's on my counter. I push on it, it doesn't slide, but nothing sticks to it. It also is a great surface for little kids learning how to cut and help you in the kitchen. This cake server knife, you're not going to cut yourself. All my kids learned how to cut with this when they were old enough to stand. And now they are teenagers and they can all cut with a real knife. So I want to show you that even broccoli, how you can cut it with this knife. So you can get it into more of the bite-sized shapes. So your littles can be in the kitchen cooking with you. Another benefit, you guys, to getting kids in the kitchen is when you have a kiddo with allergies and they're trying different things, if you get them in the kitchen, they're going to be more willing to try new things if they have cooked it with you. So highly recommend getting those kiddos in the kitchen with you. So I'm putting this broccoli in here. Now, I normally would put this all in here and cook it up too, but I'm going to use this to demo another product. But before I do, I want to show you even the very tough ends of the broccoli, how I can just cut that off easily on the roll cut with my Kickstart knife. It's not cutting my roll pot, not cutting myself. It's pretty cool. So I put all the broccoli in there. All I did was wash it. I'm not going to season that with anything. I'm just going to put my lid on top. Now, if I did this full, it would be 3 minutes, okay? So this guy is going to be about 1.5 to 2 minutes because smaller, less quantity, less full. It's going to cook faster, okay? So definitely be aware. Every microwave is different as well. So I'm going to do this 1.5 minutes and then check. So I'm going to cover it with my octagonal bond mat, and I'm going to put that in the microwave just like that. I'll be right back. Okay, so while that's cooking, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this roll pot. So I've got a recipe on my website for chicken pot pies, and I've got a recipe for pie dough, and you can absolutely do that. Pie dough recipe with this gluten-free flour turns out amazing. Now, one of the things about gluten-free doughs is they're often very, very sticky. And so what I will tell you is if you are going to use it on here, you're going to want to put a little, when I do say a regular dough, a gluten-filled dough, I don't normally need to add flour to my roll pot. When I'm doing gluten-free, you do need to add just a little bit of flour, but it's the tiniest sprinkling of flour just to keep the dough, some sort of surface between the dough and the roll pot. But the other thing is a lot of times it'll stick to your rolling pin, which can be a problem. And so you're going to put my gluten-free dough down here. I can put my bond mat on top of that and then roll it out. And so that is a great way to deal with super sticky dough. Sometimes sticky dough becomes less sticky when you put it in the fridge. So then the cool thing about roll pot is you can pick it up. You can't pick your counter up. So let's say I've got my dough and I'm like, oh, it's a little bit sticky. I can just roll this whole thing up and go put this in my fridge, let it chill, come back out and take care of it. So now with those chicken pot pies, because I'm gonna hopefully share that recipe in our recipe game for those of you that are watching this party live. And the tray that I like my chicken pot pies in best is this round tray. Each of these are 1 cup exactly. So it makes a really fun chicken pot pie size. So you'll see that featured in that recipe. It's also great for freezing. So I make something, a sauce, a soup, even just leftovers. I can put those in here and save them, freeze them in 1 cup portions. So it really is great. One of the ways I get around this convenience of frozen, but dealing with food allergies is anytime I make something, I make multiple batches of it and then I freeze it. So then I have it, once it's frozen, I can pop it out, I put it in a bag, label what it is, and then I have that convenience of frozen food, but the safety of knowing that I made it and it's free of the allergens that I'm working with. So this round tray is definitely a must for anyone that's dealing with food allergies and wants to do some food prep and freeze this, okay? So let me grab the broccoli, I'll be right back. Okay, so this is 1.5 minutes. Again, what's inside of here is super hot. It is hot to touch on the bottom, but it is not burning my hand. So what I'm gonna tell you is the steam inside of here is very hot and can burn you. So be really careful. The first few times you use this, I might put it on a microwave safe plate until you learn how to get this in and out safely. But now I want you to see as I pull this away from me, all the steam that's gonna come up. So look at all that steam and I'm touching it. And I want you to say 1.5 minutes. Look at that gorgeous broccoli, okay? So this is fantastic. You can have this as a side dish with your food. You can put, sauces and so forth, put this in there. I like to use broccoli as a base for pasta sauces instead of using the gluten-filled pasta. So now you can season this up however you want. You can just do simple salt and pepper. We like to do a little fresh lemon juice, which I forgot to pull my lemon and my citrus press out, but we have the best citrus press. So we can do fresh lemon in there and put that on there. And then some salt and pepper. I love our pepper mill. You get lots of flavor. That's another thing with gluten-free is a lot of times you're missing the flavor. And so our herb blends are really great for adding that flavor. And these herb blends are gluten-free, which is really exciting. So you can add some fresh herbs. They smell fresh. They're actually dried, but absolutely amazing. I opened that. It smells amazing. And then you can season up our peppers, 5 different peppers from around the world. Top part is our pepper grinder, and you can switch out which pepper you like. My kids love having this pepper on the table so that they can kind of pick the pepper they want. You just change out the top and you put that new pepper on the grinder and go from there. So super simple, whether you're doing meats, vegetables, which honestly, you guys, meats and vegetables, pretty easy unless you have an allergy, of course, to vegetable or meat. It's pretty easy to cook gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free with those, which is why I'm not highlighting a lot of those, but this is, again, really fun way and delicious way to do your vegetables, your broccolis, and other things. Okay, so now I want to show you my banana bread. Okay, so I'm gonna move this off to the side because I'm gonna do the eco chop here in a minute. And so this is my banana bread that I made in the large loaf tray, and it's gluten-free. So how did I make this? So this, the recipe, I had it printed somewhere, maybe it's right here, because I don't go off my memory. No, that's a different recipe print. Okay, it's on my website. But what do? I substituted the butter. I used this dairy-free butter. The eggs, I used the egg replacer. And the flour, I used the gluten-free flour. And you've got to see how amazing this looks. I forgot to bring a platter out, but I'll just hold it for you. So our large loaf mold is great for gluten-free breads. It comes with this support, and the support sits on the baking sheet, and then the loaf mold sits in there. Because if you don't have that support, it'll just kind of fall open when you get the weight of it in there, okay? So look how gorgeous this gluten-free bread comes out. Okay, it smells so amazing. I mean, look at this, gorgeous gluten-free bread. I wish that I could send this through the camera for you guys to eat, but I want to show you, really important, put it in this mold that's clean, is this mold. So this is gluten-free, is going to, when I do gluten flour, it doesn't stick at all. I wouldn't call this stick it because you can still get that clean results. You can see that gorgeousness, but there is a film with gluten-free that is sometimes left behind, okay? But that is so easy to clean, you guys. It just literally comes right off. So you can see, super easy. I'll wash this. I am the only person here in my house right now, so I can't move the camera and show you, but it's so easy to wash with soap, hot water, in 30 seconds, it will be washed. It's absolutely amazing. So you can do this with gluten-free mixes that you buy at the store. You can do gluten-free from scratch and make the substitutions that I'm telling you about. I promise you, you're going to be thrilled with the result. How gorgeous is that? Now, the other thing is you could freeze this, you guys. So when I freeze stuff, so this is a big one, baked goods for sure, because I can tell you, especially when my kids were little and they'd go to school, somebody would bring a birthday treat. I know that nowadays they don't bring treats to school as much because of allergies, but when my kids were little, they would. And so if there was a last minute birthday, snack, something I needed to send to school, I would have stuff in my freezer ready to go for my allergy kiddo so that he wouldn't feel left out. But when I freeze in FlexiPan, I freeze the product in it. So I put it in the freezer like that. That way it keeps its shape. And then once it's frozen, I pull it out and then I put it in its baggies and go from there. So this mini muffin tray is also a really great option when you want to do those bake ahead things, because it's little. And you know, if you have little hands, you just want one muffin. For my kids when they were little, now they can eat 4, but it kind of fits all different eating styles, types, shapes, and sizes. But I do love this. It's a really great one for everybody. Appetizers, full size, you name it. Another fun tray that I love to do is our deep heart tray. I like this because it's unique. You're not going to find anyone else out there who's got these fun different shapes. So these products were really great when my kid was little because he knew what mom's treats looked like, because I would have them in a fun shape. he would know what shape his was and it wouldn't get mixed up with anyone else. So huge benefit too. May seem like something small, but I promise when you're living it, it's great to know that you're using a safe product and something your kid can recognize and feel really special, because their muffin might look a lot better than someone else's, even though it's free of all the things they're allergic to. So, okay, so then let me think about what else I wanted to share with you. I'm looking at my notes here. Okay, so some other really great substitutions. If you're not going to use the Earth Balance butter, there's a lot of dairy-free butters out there. Again, this is my favorite, but you can also use coconut oil. That's a really great substitute that we like. I mentioned the coconut milk, the rice milk, applesauce, egg replacer. Those are egg subs. I mentioned the chicken pot pies. Okay, this is a really fun one. Warms my heart. I've done cooking classes before. Had a little girl that was challenged this year that came to cooking class in the summertime, and it's gluten-free and dairy-free and egg-free. And we did microwave Rice Krispie treats. So I'm not going to make those for you today. One, I don't have the ingredients, and two, if I make them, I'll eat them all. And there's no one at home to eat them with me. But I have a really great video I'm going to share with you. And so you do, depending on your gluten allergy, I know some people, the regular Rice Krispie cereal has gluten in it if you're celiac or something, but you can find a gluten-free Rice Krispie cereal. And I know some people that are gluten-free can do the Rice Krispie cereal. So it's just tailored to each person. But you use this butter, marshmallows, you guys, they're gluten-free, dairy-free. They're sugar-filled, yes, but it's a fast, easy treat. And then the Rice Krispie cereal. So it's really easy. So I will, if you want that video, if you haven't seen it, maybe I'll share it at the end of this video so that you guys can see that. So I've got a lot of great recipes, like I mentioned, on my website, easy to adjust. If you don't see the notes on how to adjust them and you're having trouble with that, please reach out. I'd love to help you with that. A couple of recipes I wanted to call your attention to. It's like a blueberry banana baked oatmeal square. That's a really good one that you can do all these substitutes I talked about, and oatmeal you can get gluten-free, so that's great. There's gluten-free lemon zucchini bread that's super yummy. I've got some healthier pumpkin muffins. I've made those gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free. They're just amazing. Also have gluten-free brownie recipe on there, but I will tell you my favorite gluten-free brownie recipe to make, gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, is Bob's Red Mill. They have a mix, and again, it calls to make it with butter. And I use the dairy for butter, and it calls for eggs, and I use the applesauce. And they're so good, and they come out perfectly. And my favorite tray for that, I want to show you. I've got my little bin of goodies here. So just so you guys can see what I'm pulling out of this bag I take to in-person classes, and I can fit so many things in here. And so I'm looking for my square Savern tray, which I thought was in here, but maybe not. So then the next place I'll look is my drawer. This is really fun because this is how I store items. And so I'm not going to walk away from you. Oh, here it is. Got it. I knew I have it there somewhere. But because this stuff is so lightweight, you guys, it's really easy to store. This is another favorite of mine. This is our square Savern tray. And this is what I love to do the gluten-free brownies in. So now, the other thing that I want to tell you guys about is if you ever get something that does stick to FlexiPan, because it does happen. It's very, very, very rare. But the best part about it is, like I said, is you can freeze it. So let's say you have a recipe that you've never made before, and it's giving you a little trouble sticking. And the way you're going to know is you're going to kind of start to pop it out, and you can see it staying behind. You can stick it in the freezer. It'll freeze up, and then you can pop it right out. Do you understand? So I think that's someone on my team, Alex, so you don't need to worry about letting her in unless you recognize that name. I think she's accidentally on here. Okay, so this is the square Savern tray. So I love this one. It's so great, multi-purpose, fantastic. So, okay, let me grab the waffles. I did say 15 minutes, so they're a little early. So hold on a sec. Okay, so I typically do 20 minutes. This is 15 minutes. They're piping hot, and you can see I can still touch that pan. So I'm gonna let them go a little bit longer. You see, they're not sticking. I mean, how crazy is that? You guys watch me make these from start to finish. But I will tell you, I'm gonna go a little bit longer to try and get them golden like those other waffles. So just a second, put these back in. Okay, so you can see this is the waffle I made earlier with a King Arthur mix. You can see how that got nice and golden. And so sometimes gluten-free doesn't get golden. I mean, that's just the reality of it. It doesn't brown as well as a regular flour, but Look at that, gluten-free, you can do it. Gluten-free, egg-free, dairy-free, looks gorgeous. So I
do have one question for you.
What'd you say?
I do have one question. So I did notice like the gluten-free stuff that I've made, it doesn't brown at all. So how do you know when it's actually done?
I know, isn't that so true? You really have, it's hard because I have had times where I've made gluten-free things that are undercooked and then you make them and they're overcooked. And so the reality is, take good notes when you're making a recipe from experience. You can do the toothpick test the same way that you would do a toothpick test with any baked good. And so little tip, if you don't know this, when you put the toothpick in to test for doneness, don't just put it in and pull it out. You put it in and you leave it in for about 5 or 6 seconds because you got to give it a minute to just kind of see if it's going to stick or not and then pull it out. If you rush, then sometimes it'll give you a false read. So toothpick test is the best way to tell that something is gluten-free. The more you cook with it, you're gonna learn and you're gonna kind of be able to tell. And there are some things that just flat out don't brown, that's reality. And so, but there, again, this product, there is nothing better for gluten-free and dairy-free, egg-free, nut-free, you name it, because it's so flexible. You can try so many different things with it. And the cool thing about it is before I had these flexible products in my kitchen, which is a long time ago, I did still experiment with recipes. I didn't have the allergies that we had to deal with, but I would just try recipes that would sometimes fail. And it was so discouraging that you put all the time and energy into something and it sticks to the pan and you can't get it out or doesn't cook evenly. And so I will tell you with FlexiPan, in 16 years, I maybe have had 3 fails. And that's huge because I cook and bake a lot. And so I love that with confidence, I can try a recipe, I can alter a recipe. It may not taste what I want it to taste, but it's gonna come out, it's gonna look beautiful. And I'm gonna have a real good indicator if it's a recipe that I'm gonna make again and again, because I'm gonna know that's safe, if it's gonna be good or not. Okay, I left this, I forgot why I left this, and then I just remembered. So another really cool thing, when you're cooking at home a lot, you're making a lot of stuff from scratch, a really essential tool that everyone needs in every kitchen, no matter how you're cooking, is our EcoChop. So I just wanted to show this to you real quick because it's game changer. I know cooking at home can be time consuming, and the chopping of the vegetables is sometimes the biggest time consumer. One of the substitutes I put, I know that Alex, you can't do eggs, but somebody has a dairy allergy. I will put sweet potatoes, like I'll cut raw sweet potatoes in the EcoChop, and I'll put those in my quiche instead of cheese. And it creates a really nice texture to it. And so the fact that you have something that you can chop up raw sweet potatoes is amazing. So I'm just going to demo this product with broccoli for anyone that has never seen this EcoChop. It's pretty cool. So you can see it's raw broccoli. I'm putting that in there. It's a great way to hide vegetables from your kids too. So I'm going to put the lid on there and show you. Now I told 3 times. So let's say you're doing that in a soup and you want the chunks. Okay, there you go. But let's say you want to hide it, because I like to hide things from my gums. Pop it like crazy and look what it does. So it does the same thing with celery, onions, you name it. So this is a game changer, you guys, when you're doing a lot of cooking from scratch. Okay, let me grab those waffles and let's see before we turn this recording off. Okay, so yeah, you can see they're starting to brown around the edges. Let's see if we get this. It's hot, but the fact that I can touch it without burning, you can see that. So now right there, you can see it's starting to brown. I still would want it to brown a little bit more, but I also don't want to overcook it because gluten-free can get dried out quickly. And so I'm just going to cut this one open and say it's done. So I'm going to leave it. It's hard to tell in the lighting because it is brown more than a lot of gluten-frees would, but it's done. And now I know 400 degrees, 20 minutes is my answer for this recipe. And so this is so great, you guys, because here you go, here's your waffles, and you can just pop those in the toaster. And not only are they delicious, they're customizable, but they're way cheaper than if you go buy a frozen waffle. And I'm not sure, maybe you could find dairy-free, gluten-free, egg-free, I'm not quite sure, but this, you could be confident that you can have the ingredients and make that. So, okay, let me go ahead and turn the recording off real quick.